Namaskar. Health is becoming increasingly a complicated issue where we need technology now to reach the unreached. With the government having launched a National Digital Health Mission and the National Health Authority striving to ensure that quality healthcare reaches the masses, we as healthcare professionals need to update ourselves on digital technology. Various tools, including artificial intelligence, machine learning, large language models, telemedicine, HMIS, EMR, etc., are now becoming absolute necessity to deliver good quality healthcare across the length and breadth of the country. Maharashtra University of Health Sciences, along with the Koita Foundation, is very happy to bring to you a digital health foundation course on Karma Yogi Bharat. We are very happy that we've pulled in the best of subject matter experts from both India and abroad, from both the fields of technology as well as healthcare, to help demystify and simplify digital health and make us all literate and future ready. We have put together 13 courses which cover all topics like the HMIS, the EMR, data privacy, data security, telemedicine, AI, ML, etc. And we do hope that you join us on this exciting journey and make yourselves competent, capable, compassionate, and able to reach across the length and breadth of the country to all the patients. Jai Hind.
Hi, a very good day to everyone who's listening to me out here. I am Dr. Palak. I'm a radiologist from Tata Memorial Hospital, and I'm here to take forward the Digital Health Foundation course. Okay, so this is going to be my module 4, in which we will be introducing you to the imaging, laboratory systems, and departmental systems. I would like at the outset to thank the organizers to have me over here to be able to impart my little bit of understanding of digitalization to you, which is an integral part. You remember the days when you would have a telephone which was something like this, with a wire, and never had somebody imagined to have wireless phones, and the technology from there has gone on to social media and a completely digitalized world. That is how medical technology has also progressed leaps and bounds. We have been able to embark upon various aspects of technology in ways we had never thought before. The first time the X-ray or radiograph was created, it was like, wow, we're seeing something within the body or within what we see from the outside, and nobody would have imagined that at one point of time we would be seeing every organ in such minute detailing of about 1 millimeter thickness to understand diseases, physiologies, abnormalities, anomalies, and taking that further down, we have gone into molecular level and radiomics, where molecular imaging, where everything goes down to a cellular level to understand functionality. So to begin with, you need to understand how digitalization has affected or improved our medical diagnostic technology, and with that, digitalization is not just about assessment of the human body, but you need to understand how it takes you through various aspects. So let's say, for example, if you're working in a hospital, how are you digitally connected to another department of your hospital, to another doctor in another hospital, to another hospital which is perhaps kilometers away or across the oceans, and you're connected to somebody else for a health expert opinion. We are sharing data, we are sharing medical data, we are sharing laboratory data, we can also share data for research purposes, and it also extends down to when a patient is admitted. There are various other systems which you never even dream of, but they all are an integral part of digital technology. It's not just imagine a medicine is out of stock and you do not know about it. So and when a patient needs an emergency drug, it is not there. Everything is automatized, everything is planned and charted out in such a way that there is a triaging happening, there is a stock maintaining happening, so everything goes on seamlessly without anybody even coming to know of it. Why is it important to understand digitalization? One is to understand the systems in which you are working. Two would be for you to be able to explore how you can enhance digitalization to make it even better. And three, to understand that every electronic system can fail at some point of time. So how to have your checks in place, how to not have failures, and what not to do and what to do to avoid a complete emergency situation because of failure of digitalization. So we need to have our backups, we need to have our data safety monitoring kept in place. So everything has to also have a secondary checkpoint to see that we are safe. Okay, so from here on, let me take you to our session today. Okay, so that's me, and I am a professor in the Department of Review Diagnosis. I am also the officer in charge of breast imaging and prevention at Tata Memorial Hospital. So let me take you ahead, introducing you to imaging, labs, and departmental systems. What will be our learning objectives? So understand the fundamental concepts and definitions of medical imaging and digital imaging, including the key modalities used in the field. We wish to explore the role of picture archiving and communication systems. PACS. It is often referred to as PACS, so you would not know the full form unless you study for your exam. And RIS, which is radiology information systems, in the digitalization, storage, and management of medical images. It is also to identify the benefits and challenges of digital imaging in medical settings. We wish to gain insights into the digital health standards governing medical imaging systems such as DICOM, which you will come to later, to examine the future trends and innovations in medical imaging, and to acquire a comprehensive overview and significance of various departmental systems. Let me ask you a fun fact. Do you know about the origin of medical imaging? Yes, the concept of medical imaging began in 1895 with the invention of the X-ray or radiograph by a German professor of physics, Wilhelm Röntgen. For this achievement, he was awarded with the inaugural Nobel Prize in Physics in 1901. So this is exactly how I said that it was the first time we saw something inside a body. Let me take you to the medical imaging overview. Medical imaging is one of the most used tools in medicine. These medical images help doctors diagnose and treat various diseases and conditions. The medical imaging consists of types, of which common examples are X-ray imaging or radiograph imaging, computed tomography, e organ of CT scan, magnetic resonance imaging as well as an MRI scan, ultrasound imaging or often also called as ultrasonography, and positron emission tomography, which is PET scans. Digital imaging refers to the use of electronic systems to capture, store, manage, and display medical images. Digital image acquisition such as X-rays, MRIs, or CT scans, etc., and then digital enhancement of images occur. Process images are stored in picture archiving and communication system PACS or other storage systems. Advances in digital imaging technologies enable computers to apply algorithms for image processing. Example, to create 3D models. Use of AI or artificial intelligence is now enabling computers to further analyze images to detect various diseases. So this is a snapshot of the kind of images that I've been talking about. This is a digital radiography unit where the patient lies on the couch over here, and the X-ray tube is here, and this is a detector. The CT scan machine where again the detection happens all around. So the patient lies on this couch, and as the patient goes in, while the scan is happening, we have detection from all angles of the patient. So it is a 360 degree capture. Digital mammography where the woman would stand here, and then well, males also undergo mammography when you're suspecting a breast cancer. So we have the patient standing over here, and the breast is placed on this detector, and compression is applied from this panel, and we have a little lead glass to prevent radiation exposure to the patient onto the other layers. And the mammogram is taken, and the image is acquired over here. What you see in this little picture here is a picture of a mammogram. And ultrasound imaging, which was a concept of ultrasound base. So we have this machine here. The little stick that you see here is called a probe. The probe is placed on the patient's body, and that acquires or captures images which are reflected on this system, and this is the display monitor of the ultrasound machine. Coming to MRI, so we have the magnet in here, right, and we have a patient lying down out here. The patient is taken in, motorized by motorized cable, and then the scanning starts happening. When an MRI happens, the patient hears constant loud noises as and when the sequence is acquired. A CT scan in one round we get finished in about 1.5 to 2 minutes, whereas an MRI can take about 20 minutes to 40 minutes. Molecular imaging again, the PET scan and the sensitivity scans and all take place over here, in which the radioactive material is captured. So this is, let's come to digital radiography machine. An overview. So digital radiology replaces traditional X-ray films with computer-based image capture and viewing. What are the principles of digital radiography? You have digital sensors, that is, the digital radiography uses electronic sensors instead of X-ray films. Then there are converters or conversion, where there are sensors which convert the X-ray energy into electronic signals, and that is followed by processing, in which electronic signals are processed and displayed on a computer screen. So for example, let me show you here. We have a radiography machine or an X-ray machine. The patient is lying on this couch. The X-rays are going to pass from here, and they will pass through the body as in the shape of a beam, and it hits the detectors over here once it passes on the body. So in the olden days, what used to happen is from here there would be a cassette that is placed here. The cassette is loaded with a film, which you commonly see as a black film. So the loaded cassette is then taken to a dark room, and the film is dipped in a series of solutions until we have the development of an image. But what happens if I put it in the solution for too long a time, or if I put it in the wrong position by mistake, or if I did not handle it well, I put my fingerprints, I could spoil the film. So a lot of factors were dependent on getting a good image quality. This has been completely replaced now with the digital system. So what happens here, instead of a removable film, I have sensors, and these sensors capture the photons emitted. They capture the energy which strikes the surface of the plate that I discussed, and it is converted into electronic signals, and that is converted into an image formation which is available. And processes so once the image comes over here, there comes into we come to the level of processing where I can change certain parameters, the brightness, the contrast, the edge enhancement, all these factors can be changed left, right, inversion, so that I get a much better image. Sometimes, like for example, even when I have a good standard image, but I want to see the bones better in the chest radiograph. After taking a standard image, I just change the windowing, and the image is seen much better in terms of the bones. So I can change the windowing to make myself certain bones better visible, or I want to see the lung area better visible. So all this comes under processing. So then I have an option of playing around with the image to make my diagnosis easier. So this is what a digital radiography is like, and this is what a digital radiography is like. So this film has now been replaced by a system where we see it being reflected on a monitor. So to recapitulate, digital radiography uses electronic sensors for instant capture, and traditional radiography uses X-ray films. Digital radiography offers immediate access and editing, whereas traditional radiography requires processing and limited adjustments. Digital radiography provides superior image quality, streamlined workflow, and low radiation exposure compared to traditional methods. This is a digital mammography imaging machine where I explain where we have a patient standing, the breast is placed on the detector and the palate will be compressed. This is a view which is X-ray view is in an oblique position. So this is called as a medial lateral oblique view. Alright, and once the image is captured from here, it is immediately reflected on the acquisition workstation. AWS is its name. So what is an overview here? It is advanced breast imaging that utilizes electronic detectors in place of traditional X-ray films, resulting in clear, detailed breast images. Digital mammography benefits are improved image quality and reduced radiation doses. The challenges are specialized equipment is required, and initial setup is costly, and it requires training as well. What are the key advances in the digital mammography? Contrast enhanced mammography. It uses contrast agents to visualize blood flow in breast tissue and enhances detection of small tumors and improves diagnostic accuracy. If you're wondering what's happening, let me tell you. Have you known anybody having undergone a CT scan? When we undergo a CT scan, most often than not, the patient is injected with an IV contrast or intravenous contrast, and that is called as a contrast enhanced CT scan. Why do we do this? We do this to see different shades of grey. A plain CT has shades of grey, but when we give contrast, wherever there's blood flow, those areas light up. They take up the contrast. So we see inherent differences between the various tissues. We can understand the anatomy better. We can pick up disease better. So a contrast enhanced CT adds an 80% increase in the diagnostic accuracy to a plain CT scan. Alright. Similarly, this is an example of a mammogram in which there is a small lesion seen here, but a general radiologist may not detect this lesion, or this lesion over here is still more prominent. Sometimes they are so occult that even a specialist may not be able to detect because the breast can be extremely dense. Imagine a breast where it is so dense that all of it is almost white. It is going to hide the cancer within. What contrast enhanced mammography does is once the dye or the intravenous contrast is injected, it circulates in the body. Now tumor has a lot of new vascularity. So the tumor is going to pick up more of the blood flowing around. Now more of the blood has more of the contrast. So an abnormal tumor is going to pick up more contrast than the rest of the normal breast. Alright. So the moment something is picking up more contrast, it looks like this. And then with this, there is an arrangement of superimposition or a subtraction. So we have this as a routine or a low energy image and subtraction from a high energy image, and that shows us only the abnormal enhancing areas, and the rest of the white areas or the rest of the parenchyma gets suppressed. So this makes the visibility of the tumor very thin. So I'm sure everybody out here would have diagnosed and detected this, but everybody may not have detected this. And this is an example of a relatively not so difficult case, but trust me, sometimes in a dense breast it becomes very difficult and tricky to detect a lesion even after having spent years into breast imaging. So this is a technology which can enhance visibility and can improve the diagnosis better. Next is tomosynthesis. So tomosynthesis is also famously known as 3D imaging. Now this is not entirely three-dimensional imaging like a CT scan where you have a 1 by 1 by 1 millimeter axis reconstruction in all the planes. But what happens is in a tomosynthesis, once the breast is placed, there is an arc of movement of the X-ray tube. Alright, so let me take you back to this image. So this is an X-ray tube from a mammography machine. The tube will move from this position and it will shoot X-rays from here, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever it goes till here. So now different machines have different arcs. Some machines will have a very wide arc, some machines will have a smaller arc, but the principle of tomosynthesis remains the same. As it goes across the arc, this is the movement of the X-ray machine, and this is the movement of the X-ray beam trajectory that hits the breast. So because you have a fan beam in a fan direction, the breast is being sliced at different angles, and then by a software processing, these images are available as a stack. So they are a stack of images taken at short different angles of 1 to 5 degree gap, and it constructs a kind of a three-dimensional image. Now why do we do this? So for example, we have this disease here. There is something here we're not very sure, but on tomosynthesis we see it much better. Why does this happen? It is like imagine a ball within a layer of sheets. Alright, so there's a lot of overlap happening everywhere, and you cannot see it too well. But the moment I start taking something at angles, if that is a true finding, if there is really something, it will start being seen on every section, and it will show me like a space occupied lesion. However, if it is just a jargon of dense breast, there's nothing really sitting there, but it was seen as there are a lot of stuff happening around. So if I just have something overlapping and then have multiple images, they will look like a dense parenchyma, and I will not see a mass. But when really there is a mass, it will start showing up with a clearer dimension. The margins will be seen, its presence will be better. Sometimes these cancers have speculations, they have architectural distortion, and all this is seen better on tomosynthesis. Sometimes they have small lesions which are next to it, called as satellite lesions. They may not be seen on a routine 2D view, but they will be better seen on a 3D image. Okay, so this is a 3D imaging for a clearer view of breast tissue, and it helps detect and characterize breast tumors better. Now let's come to a breast ultrasound. This is a real-time imaging of breast tissue because as and when the ultrasound happens, I am seeing the images, and it assists in evaluating breast abnormalities, detecting cancers, as well as guiding biopsies. Another fun fact: do you know how much time it takes for normal mammography? It just takes typically about 15 minutes, and a contrast mammo will take something about 20 minutes or so. So it is not too long. And if you go in a high volume center where you have trained technologists, it only takes about 10 minutes. Alright, I would like to ask if anybody asks you, do I go for a mammogram or not? I think your answer should be yes. If they say, oh, but it's really painful. So I always explain my patients that it's not about pain. It's just a little bit of discomfort. It's the way you perceive it. And if you understand the intent of getting through something, why you're getting it is for diagnosing for yourself. I don't think it should matter, right? So it's about training and tuning your mind. But if you are conscious and if you're aware, then we must look into our health correctly, right? This concludes part 1 of module 4, where we introduce digital imaging and its key modalities with a focus on digital radiography and digital mammography. In parts 2 and 3, we will explore additional digital imaging techniques such as ultrasound imaging, CT imaging, MRI imaging, and molecular imaging. We will discuss the importance of digital imaging systems, including vector archiving and communication systems, or PACS, and radiology information systems, or RIS. We will also delve into the role of laboratory and departmental systems. Coming to ultrasound imaging overview. So what is ultrasound? It uses high frequency sound waves to create pictures of the inside of the body. During an ultrasound examination, a small handheld device or a transducer. So if you see this little thing in her hand over here, is a transducer. You see this little stick, this is a transvaginal transducer. There's one over here which is curved. That's called a curved linear transducer, and this one is flat. So it's called a linear transducer. Why do these have different names? So this one is a transvaginal ultrasound for transvaginal ultrasound. So this probe goes into the vagina to look at the pelvic organs better, or it can be used to place in the rectum for assessment of the prostate. When we have curved linears, these are lower frequencies relatively. Lower frequencies means they will penetrate into the abdominal cavity better. So if you want to look at the liver organs, the kidneys, the other deeper areas, the retroperitoneum, we use a curved linear probe. Linear probe is when we want to use superficial imaging like for breast, musculoskeletal soft tissue, orbits, skin. So these have high ultrasound, high frequency ultrasound. So they will look into the superficial structures of the body, and an orbit has an even higher frequency ultrasound. And we can have ultrasound frequencies of almost up to 15 to 20 where there are just layers of the skin seen. So that is the beauty of the extent of depth that can be covered. So So the transducer is used to emit sound waves into the body, right? And the sound waves, once they hit something within the body, they bounce back from the internal structures. And the transducer picks up the echoes to create real-time images on the screen. Okay, so the waves, they go down. The moment they hit an audience, so let's say they hit the liver surface, that sound wave will come back. And depending on the depth that it has traveled and the kind of substance that was, it changes its echogenicity and appearance, and each sound wave will cast an image. Now, there are so many thousands and 10,000 of these waves which go in, and at each level they are reflected, at each depth they are reflected back, and it helps us produce an image. Now all this is real time. So imagine the how fast the technology is, because we swiftly move the probe and we swiftly see the images. We cannot even imagine what is happening real time for us to capture these images. A lot of the digital enhancements in ultrasound technology. So we have some key digital advancements over here. Advanced transducers produce higher frequency sound waves, allowing better resolution and detailed imaging of small structures and organs. Three-dimensional and four-dimensional ultrasound. It provides a comprehensive and realistic view of the fetus during pregnancy. So this is a 3D ultrasound where we see a beautiful face of the little baby in the womb, and then this is a 4D ultrasound imaging, again where we see the structure so much better. And yes, everybody loves to see these views. Now, if you look at the diagnostic reasoning for using these, there are few indications where 3D or 4D really enhances. So in fetal imaging, they are the top-notch imaging because it helps in the detection of anomalies much more better, in a much better way. The fetus is seen so well. Apart from that, there are certain other conditions like usual anomalies where a 3D approach can show us the anatomy and assess the diagnosis a little superior than a 2D technology. But otherwise, most situations, a 2D ultrasound is really good, and we may not need a 3D ultrasound. Okay. Now coming to a Doppler ultrasound. So this is another tool of an ultrasound that I would say, where we have images of internal anatomy of the body seen as events happening in real time, as I said. We also see how organs move, blood flows, or joints bend while we're looking at the images. So that's a Doppler ultrasound. So what does that do? It visualizes the blood flow inside the body to help understand blood movements through vessels. Doppler imaging creates color-coded maps that show the speed and direction of blood flow. So for here, for example, we're looking at a fetus being evaluated on ultrasound. These are the limbs, this is the face, this is the placenta, and this is the uterus or the womb. Now the placenta and the baby are connected by an umbilical cord, and you see the umbilical artery and the veins nicely twisted around. So this is how a color flow is seen. Now a blue or a red will tell us whether the direction of the vascularity or the blood flow is towards the probe or away from the probe. Okay, so it helps us in assessment of the arterial and venous structure, and it also helps us to understand the presence of vascularity when we want to do interventional procedures. It helps us in assessment of soluble cystic, and there's a quantification that is done. So depending on the quantification, it reflects. So we have maps. The maps have a resistive index and a pulsatility index, and it tells us their reflections of how stiff a tissue is. Like for example, if I'm doing a kidney ultrasound and the Doppler shows a high resistance, then I'm worried that there is a parenchymal situation which is causing a high pressure in the renal arteries. Right, and that can happen like in a post-renal transplant if there is a imminent graft rejection situation happening, or in liver if there is fibrosis happening, then that is reflected by high pressures in the liver. So the quantification of the Doppler helps in assessment of a lot of physiology of the images that you're looking at. So here's another fun fact. Do you want to know when the ultrasound was used? It was used for medical purposes in 1956, much after the X-ray, when the work of Professor Ian Donald and studies in Glasgow did much to facilitate the development of practical technology and applications. So it was many years later after the radiograph, and it is so rapidly used, but it was as recent as just 1956. It tells you how technology has moved leaps and bounds. Let's take you to the next section of computerized tomography imaging machine technique. It combines the X-ray technology with advanced computer processing and provides detailed cross-sectional images of the body's internal structures. The techniques are digital CT scanning techniques and enhanced image reconstruction and processing. So this is a CT scanner, the patient is being scanned, and the doctor is viewing the images as and when the CT scan is happening. This is a multiple view, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by 5. So this is a 5 by 5 slice view that the viewer is seeing. Alright, and this is called as the AWS again, as I said before, which is the acquisition workstation. So we have two workstations. One is an acquisition, where as and when the images are captured, they are reflected upon this system, and then another one is a reviewing workstation, or the RWS, which is the one where there are multiple RWS workstations where we sit and we are monitoring and reporting the scans. So digital CT scanning techniques are two types: multi-detector CT and dual energy CT. So what does MDCT do? It uses an array of detectors to capture multiple slices of data simultaneously and provides 3D images of organs and structures within the body. Dual energy CT, it utilizes two different levels of X-ray energy to distinguish between different types of tissues and enhances contrast in resulting images. So for example, MDCT is where multiple detectors are used, and we see the images that are so beautiful, and they are less than 1 millimeter reconstruction or 0.6 millimeter sometimes, so the anatomy is seen in a perfect anatomical correlation, and these can be also post-processed by various volumetric software or rendering software, and we can either choose to see only the bones or the soft tissues or the blood vessels or the external surface of the patient, and this is how we can have a volume rendered three-dimensional image. Dual energy CT, look at this image over here. This is 140 kVp or kilovolt potential, and this is 100 kVp. So we have a 140 and a 100. So do we see the contrast is so much better over here compared to the contrast over here? Then we have a mixed 100 or 140 kVp image, and then we have the perfusion blood volume where a subtraction is used using post-processing, and we see the perfused areas better. Next is iterative reconstruction. So let us understand this image over here. So the X-ray tube is at one end and the detector is at the other end, and this round is the movement of the gantry. So when a patient is lying over here on the couch, as shown over here, the couch will be here, the detector is beneath the patient, and the X-ray tube is bang opposite it. So when the gantry moves, the tube moves and captures the image. So as the tube moves, the detector will also move this way, and we can see the capturing from a three-dimensional point of view, and this is how we get reconstructed images. So iterative reconstruction is used, which utilizes advanced algorithms to improve image quality by reducing radiation dose, and time resolved CT, where it involves the acquisition of multiple images over time to observe and analyze the movement of structures within the body. So this is an example of time resolved CT, where we see at 18 seconds, 23 seconds, 28 seconds, and 43 seconds. So we are seeing the blood which is now coming into the aorta, the arch, and then so it is just about come here from the heart. Now we can see the blood opacifying the entire aorta. Now it is starting to wash out from here till here, and the next phase where all the washout is happening. So we can actually see the movement and follow the movement of blood over time, and this is called as a time resolved CT. Now example of reconstruction. So let us see the measured projection. So there is something called as a localizer. So after the localizer is taken, a first image estimated is taken, and we see the images. Then there is simulated projection or corrected projections for this, and then there is comparison. There is an iterative cycle where the images are processed and you get corrected images. And what is the endpoint? We get final images depending on what it was the correction needed. So enhanced image reconstruction processing CT technique utilizes advanced algorithms and software to improve the CT images. It enhances the image quality by making them clearer, improving the contrast between different parts, and showing more details. What do you mean by contrast? Contrast is the degree of blackness and whiteness. So when I see the black and white starkly different from each other, I'm seeing them as against a good contrast. I can change the level of whiteness or the grayness, and that is changing the contrast. So whenever we are processing and interpreting, we often need to move back and forth by changing the contrast to make certain parts better visible than the other. For example, if I'm looking at a standard imaging of a post-contrast CT scan, I can see that when I want to see the liver better, I will change the contrast and the windowing to make the images such that the tumors are seen better in the liver. So it is quite a dynamic process. This also improves visualization and analysis and provides better clarity. Doctors can better visualize and analyze the images, leading to improved diagnostic accuracy and better patient care. Now let us come to MRI or magnetic resonance imaging. MRI uses powerful magnetic fields and radio waves for detailed internal body images. What are the digital advances in MRI technology? A high field MRI, which is enhanced image resolution and improved diagnostic accuracy. DTI or diffusion tensor imaging. It analyzes diffusion of water molecules in the brain. It provides detail about the brain's white matter tracts. It helps to visualize the connection between brain regions and helps in the assessment of conditions such as stroke. So how do we improve the image quality and functional assessment using an MRI? So there is improved image quality. MRI images are now clearer, sharper, and more detailed, helping doctors make accurate diagnosis. Functional imaging. MRI captures information about organ and tissue functioning. For example, fMRI or functional MRI can detect changes in blood flow and oxygenation levels in the brain. By combining improved image quality with functional imaging, a comprehensive view of the body's anatomy and functional activity can be seen. For example, this is how MRI images used to be in the earlier days, and with various post-processing and newer techniques, the images are much more crisper. Functional MRI is based on the principle of deoxygenation that happens in the blood because of certain activity trigger points. So if the patient is instructed to perform a certain small task, that task will cause the stimulation of certain responsible areas in that brain, which causes them to change in its activity and perfusion, and that is reflected over here. So this helps in assessment of the vital areas of the brain. So if there is a tumor over here, the neurosurgeon would know that there is a chance of perhaps injuring one of the vital areas around this area, and they can alter their surgery accordingly, and it also helps to prime the patient about the expected prognosis after surgery. Now let us look at molecular imaging techniques. Nuclear medicine and molecular imaging uses small amounts of radioactive material for diagnosis or treatment. Digital techniques available are based on digital detectors, which capture and convert radiation signals into digital data and provide improved sensitivity and image quality. Image reconstruction algorithms, that is advanced algorithms, reconstruct images from raw data, enhancing image quality. Digital imaging processes and analysis is specialized software processes that analyzes nuclear medicine images by fusion of multiple imaging modalities and region of interest analysis. PET-CT image. PET-CT and SPECT integration is combining PET or a SPECT and a CT for comprehensive view of the body. PET or a positron emission tomography and SPECT is single photon emission computed tomography. It shows organ and tissue function. CT, that is computed tomography, provides detailed pictures of body structures, and integrated images offer more accurate diagnosis and improved treatment planning. So this is a PET-CT image where this is a baseline and 3 months and 12 months and 24 months. So here there is a lot of nodal disease that is seen over here, which have responded to treatment, and over some period of time there is again new disease which is growing. So it helps us with assessment of staging of tumors and assessment of response over a period of time based on treatment. This concludes part 2 of module 4, where we continue our exploration of digital imaging with a focus on ultrasound imaging, CT imaging, MRI imaging, and molecular imaging. In part 3, we will dive into picture archiving and communication system (PACS) and radiology information system or RIS and discuss their benefits and challenges. Additionally, we will explore the role of laboratory and departmental systems. Now, looking at the instruments or the machines and technologies, let us look at the connectivity. So we come to the PACS, which is picture archiving systems workflow. So what is PACS? It is a digital system for storing, managing, and retrieving medical images. It functions like an organized photo album for medical images. What are the benefits? It helps us to see and study images from different machines, like X-rays, CT scans, and MRIs, all in one place. It is easy to share images, compare images, and work together. To remember and to note, PACS works without various medical imaging devices due to various DICOM standard use. So, for example, this is a system where there are multiple images and multiple medical equipment, and from there the images are going to be transferred to the PACS, and it is vice versa. And these are the DICOM images. So from here also it is a reversible process from various systems to, and it can go back. Now, what is RIS? RIS is a radiology information system, which is a specialized software system for managing and streamlining radiology department workflow and information. So we have here, let's say from here there's a patient who registers himself, which is a patient registration. The details about the patient are transferred into a hospital information system or the HIS. From there, there's an order entry placing, and there's a requisition generated. Once the requisition is generated, an appointment is given. So this is a radiology information system part of it. Once the appointment is reflected on the system of billing, then the order or schedule, and the patient can take up an image for an imaging of the various types that we have described. And once the image is generated, the image is sent to PACS and it is archived over there for newer as well as future purpose. And from the PACS, the images are available on the RWS or the review workstation that I explained before. So coming to the key functions of RIS, it automates administrative tasks and clinical tasks, including patient scheduling, image tracking, result reporting, and billing. It allows radiologists and other healthcare providers to manage and access patient data, schedule patients, and track the progress of imaging exams. It is integrated with PACS. RIS transfers images and associated information between systems. It's quick and efficient processing. Digital images are processed quickly using computer software. Faster turnaround times and cost savings in labor and resources. Efficient electronic storage. Digital imaging takes up less physical space compared to digital film-based images. Seamless sharing and communication. Easily shared and transferred over networks. Enables seamless communication among healthcare providers, researchers, and patients. It helps in immediate image quality assessment. Radiographers can adjust brightness and contrast for optimal image quality, improves accuracy of interpretation, such as breast cancer detection. Duplicated without quality degradation, where digital images can be duplicated without loss of quality, reduces the need for physical printing and distribution, and enhanced manipulation of analysis. So it offers extensive opportunities for image manipulation and analysis. Enables measurements and tracking of changes over time, and supports monitoring of treatment effectiveness. What are the challenges of digital imaging? Medical images are often stored in different image formats. Incompatibility between these formats makes it difficult to share images between different systems. Healthcare involves various patient care systems like EMRs, imaging tools, and PACS. Non-integration can hinder doctors from accessing imaging data. Different equipment and settings can make medical images vary in quality. Not properly noting or sharing scan details can lead to inconsistent quality and affect accurate diagnosis. Protecting patient privacy in medical images is vital due to sensitive data and is vulnerable to breaches. Now, what is DICOM? Digital Imaging and Communications in Medicine. It is a standard for transmitting, storing, and sharing medical images. What are the key aspects? It sets a specific image format for storing images from diverse modalities like X-ray, CT, MRI, and ultrasound. It defines formats to capture patient information. Sets rules for how medical devices and systems communicate with each other over networks. So this is an example of a sample DICOM file. Now, DICOM format for patient information. So this is a patient in the real world, and this is a patient object in the DICOM world. So this is the identity of how you and I look and feel like. But in the DICOM world, we have name, we have ID, or the identification number, we have date of birth, our sex or gender. So various demographics are captured, and the unique point is going to be the patient ID generated. Alright, we can have the same name, we can have the same surname, we can have the same combination of the name and the surname with the birth date as well. But an ID is always going to be the unique generated number. So typically, DICOM file format is referred to as DICOM file or DICOM image and stored in compressed or uncompressed format. Use file extension .dcm and follows a structured format with a header and image data. The header contains metadata, that's patient information, study details, imaging modality, and acquisition parameters. What are the benefits of DICOM standards? Seamless exchange of medical images and associated information, and it helps in integration with healthcare information systems such as EMR, which is the electronic medical record, and the PACS. Another fun fact, you know what is DICOM? DICOM was founded in just 1993, and since its introduction, providers have been able to use fully digital images with high resolution instead of physical X-ray films, CT scans, MRIs, mammography images, and everything. As recent as that at very stand today, we cannot imagine the progress that has happened. So on completion of chapter 1, which is introduction to digital imaging in healthcare, let us together review the key points. Medical imaging is a vital tool in medicine, enabling doctors to diagnose and treat various conditions effectively. Digital imaging technologies have revolutionized the field, offering benefits like improved image quality, easy storage, and faster processing. Key digital imaging modalities include X-ray, CT scan, MRI, ultrasound, and nuclear medicine, each serving specific diagnostic purposes. Picture archiving and communication system or PACS, the digitally stored and managed medical images, enhancing accessibility and collaboration among healthcare providers. Radiology information systems, streamline workflows and information within radiology departments, improving efficiency and patient care. Let us review the key points. Benefits of digital imaging include quick imaging processing, electronic data storage, seamless sharing, and extensive image manipulation capabilities. Challenges involve image format incompatibility, system integration issues, and ensuring data security and privacy. Digital health standards, particularly DICOM, enable interoperability, consistent data formats, and efficient communication among medical imaging devices and systems. Future trends include AI-driven image analysis, 3D and 4D imaging, and advancements in telemedicine capabilities. Now let us next move on to the departmental systems overview. The departmental systems refer to the integration and management of laboratory services and departments within the healthcare organization. So after understanding what happens in the radiology unit, we now move to an interdepartmental collaboration and coordination. It plays a crucial role in ensuring efficient and accurate diagnostic testing, research, and collaboration between healthcare providers. It encompasses various departments like LIS, which is the Laboratory Information Systems, OPD, Outpatient Department System, IPD, Inpatient Department System, Nursing System, Pharmacy System. You know what OPD is, and you know what IPD is? When patients are admitted to the hospital, they constitute the inpatient department patients. So let us look at integration with EMR and the HMIs. So ideally, laboratory and department systems integrate with electronic medical records of the EMR. The system should use standardized formats for efficient data sharing across different systems and platforms and reduce integration errors. It enables seamless exchange of patient information, test orders, and results between the laboratory and other healthcare providers. It ensures comprehensive patient data availability to clinicians and enables informed decision making and timely treatment. LIS, for the Laboratory Information Systems. LIS is a software platform designed to manage and streamline laboratory workflows, data management, and result reporting. LIS facilitates electronic test recording, specimen tracking, and result reporting, and the storage and retrieval of laboratory results. It ensures seamless communication between laboratory staff and healthcare providers. What are its functions? The functions are sample management, that is track and manage patient samples, proper identification, storage and retrieval, test auditing and result reporting, workflow optimization. It automates and optimizes the workflow from sample collection to result interpretation, quality assurance and control, provide real-time monitoring of instrument performance and learning techniques to potential issues, data integration and interoperability. It integrates with different systems for data exchange. So over here, for example, we have sampling and barcode printing happening once the sample is received. That is sent to the lab link and it is updated into the LIS or laboratory information system. It is also sent to the work list and the results they both move back and forth and the two are interconnected. And when the results are available, the report is also printed out with the resultant demographics of the patient and making sure that the right finding is being reported to the right patient. So this is again a workflow of the LIS where we see the patient is out here, the sample is collected and there are certain labels which are labeled on the bottles. So the demographics of the patient with the registered ID is linked onto the samples. The samples are submitted and the examination form is integrated along with all these details. Now there is an access provided to the doctor, the web access, the reports, protocols and the journals. And from here they are also transferred via the HL7 messages to the manual input lab analyzers, biochemical hematology, immunoforming and bacteriological. And eventually if there is a sample going to an outside laboratory, that also can be linked to the HL7 bridge. So this is how the interconnectivity of the laboratory information system is seen. So let me recapitulate this. Instrument connectivity, digital systems integrated with laboratory instruments, enabling direct transfer of test results. Data analytics, advanced analytic tools help analyze laboratory data, identify trends and generate insights. Decision support. Decision support tools provide recommendations and guidelines based on test results. Remote access, it allows authorized user access to laboratory information remotely. Security and privacy, robust measures protect patient data. Now let us look at the outpatient department of the OPD system overview. It is a hospital healthcare facility where patients receive medical care without staying overnight. And OPD systems of software are digital tools designed to streamline and enhance operations. So this is a snapshot of a dashboard of an OPD patient. So how does it function? Appointment scheduling. Books appointments online by choosing a date and time for consultations. Enters personal and medical information electronically. Store and manage patient medical records digitally. Doctors can generate electronic prescriptions for patients and send them directly to pharmacies. Automates the billing and payment process. Integration with other systems, so integration with EMRs and pharmacy management systems, analyze reminders and notifications are given, so automated reminders and notifications to patients regarding upcoming appointments, medication schedules, or test results. Analytics and reporting. It analyzes the data on outpatient care, prescription flow, waiting times and resource utilization, telemedicine capabilities. Some OPD systems offer telemedicine functionalities. Now let us come to IPD systems overview. That is inpatient department systems are healthcare applications that help manage and streamline various processes in a hospital's inpatient department that is a patient who is admitted overnight. It digitizes and automates the different tasks and workflows involved in managing inpatients. It serves as a digital backbone for hospitals, integrating various departments and enabling seamless communication and coordination. The IPD system functions and features are patient admission and registration. So it helps in facilitating admission of patients and the registration process, capturing and storing patient demographics, medical history and insurance details digitally. Bed and ward management provide real-time bed availability data, occupancy status and patient transfers. EMR, the electronic medical records. It maintains an electronic medical records including medical history, diagnosis, treatment plans, laboratory results and medications. It orders management to streamline the process of ordering lab tests, medications and treatments. Nursing and care documentation enables nurses to record vital signs, medications and procedures performed. Computerized provider order entry system, that is called a CPOE, refers to the process of providers entering and sending treatment instructions via a computer application. Reporting and analytics provide insights by generating reports and analytics. Let us now look into the operation theater systems overview. So OT systems are designed to optimize the surgical environment and enhance patient safety during surgical procedures. The functions of these systems are to schedule and resource management, scheduling of operations with flexible booking management, pre-operative checklist. It covers all the necessary preparation to ensure a smooth procedure. Real-time monitoring and alarms. It provides real-time monitoring of patient vital signs, anesthesia parameters and surgical equipment, generating alarms and alerts. This is a very effective means to triage and to highlight something which is alarming which might have been missed by manual human error. Time of document, crucial piece of the verification process for precise record keeping of vitals with a focus on patient safety. Multilingual consent forms, digital forms to discuss the surgical procedure as well as associated risks. Anesthesia record, medication utilized and the patient's vital signs are recorded. A patient record document the surgical procedure. Integrated audiovisual systems that provides high quality video and audio capabilities, allowing surgeons to view and share live surgical procedures with colleagues for training and research purposes as well. Surgical workflow automation, automate aspects of the surgical workflow such as surgical count management, medication administration and intraoperative documentation. Let us show you the nursing systems overview. Various healthcare applications and technologies designed to support and enhance nursing care and patient management are also now available. Some of the features are comprehensive charts. It provides a holistic view of patient's condition. Procedure and nursing notes. It captures nursing notes and other patient information. Support clinical orders for tests, procedures and medication records orders to the concerned department. There is access provided to the EMR, real-time notifications on a patient's pending arrival, current status and other reported information is recorded, real-time coordination of tests and medications is done, admission, discharge and transfer management, effective communication with ancillary departments, theatre schedule and preparation notifications, notify nurses of the theatre schedule and any preparation requirements, specialized nursing charts for pediatric and neonatal care. In specialized units like the PICU and NICU, nursing charts provide essential patient information tailored to the unique needs of pediatric and neonatal care. Let us look at a similar systems overview for the pharmaceutical department. Pharmacy systems are used to manage and streamline medication-related processes. The functions are online drug database to provide access to a comprehensive online drug database with medication information, dosages, indications, and potential interactions. Real-time inventory tracking and reporting, so facilitates real-time tracking of medication inventory, including barcode scanning. Medication ordering and management, electronically ordering, tracking, and distribution of medicines. What are the functions? Medication dispensing and labeling ensures the right dosage, labeling, and packaging of each medication. Medication safety checks incorporate safety checks and alerts such as drug interactions and allergy warnings. Inventory management, including stock monitoring, automated replenishment, and expiration date tracking. Integration with other systems, integrate with EMRs to access and update patient medication profiles. Pharmacy system features. Medication classification system is classified into ABC and DED classification systems, which categorize medicines based on importance and usage. ABC categorizes medicines as A, B, C, high value medicine, example chemotherapy drugs for cancer treatment. B is moderate value medicine, example antibiotics used for common infections, and C is low value medicine, example basic vitamins. The second is DED, which categorizes medicines as vital, which is immediate patient care, for example acute cardiac events. E is essential, which is for routine patient care, example antibiotics, and D is desirable for patient comfort, for example sleep aids. A fun fact again, do you know which Indian state government inaugurated the E-Social Hospital Management Information System in medical colleges? The Uttar Pradesh Deputy Chief Minister Brijesh Pathak and Minister of State for Medical Education Mayur Keshwar Sharan Singh inaugurated the E-Social Hospital Management Information System on December 26, 22. So fairly recent, absolutely recent, and we are getting to be more and more digitized. So with that, we complete chapter 2, which was introduction to departmental systems. Let's quickly review key points again. Departmental systems integrate and optimize various health departments within a hospital. Laboratory and departmental systems enhance workflows and data management in specific departments. Outpatient department systems handle appointments, patient registration, and medical records. Inpatient systems manage admissions, bed allocation, and electronic medical records. So on completion of chapter 2, which is introduction to departmental systems, let us review the key points. Operation theater or the OT systems streamline surgical workflows and instrument tracking. Nursing systems enable efficient documentation of patient care activities and vital signs. Pharmacy systems employ medication classification systems, online drug databases, and barcode scanning for accurate inventory management. These systems integrate with other healthcare systems for seamless information exchange and enhanced coordination of patient care. In this module, we cover two crucial aspects of healthcare, that is digital imaging systems and laboratory or departmental systems. Let's summarize the key takeaways from each chapter. The chapter 1 taught us that medical imaging systems are crucial tools in healthcare, including X-ray, ultrasound, MRI, and CT, each serving specific visualization purposes. Digital imaging plays a vital role in healthcare with diverse applications in the diagnosis and monitoring of conditions. PACS securely stores, manages, and shares medical images, facilitating communication among healthcare providers, and future trends in medical imaging continue to evolve, driving advancements in the field. In the chapter 2, we came across laboratory and departmental systems which are vital for healthcare operations, enabling efficient patient care. Explore systems like OPD, IPD, OT, nursing, and pharmacy, discussing functions and features, and tasks facilitated include patient registrations, interdepartmental consultations, surgery scheduling, medication management, and more. So these are certain sites that you could continue to refer to for further enhanced reading. You may go through these and then continue. A small little quiz that we have is just some 5 small questions for you to have understood the relevance in real life situation of how to implement the digitization in front of you in the real field with the patient within a hospital or within a diagnostic imaging tool. Kindly go ahead and take the quiz. These are the image references for all the images that have been taken in this presentation.